Welcome to the Point of Truth podcast, hosted by Jay.
Oh, tell me the truth, your truth. Tell me the truth. I wanna know the truth. So tell me the truth.
He told me I had to do shadow work. I was confused until the day I realized that, oh, my shadow is different than yours. My shadow is what's going to allow me to stand up on my own and heal myself and walk with my shoulders pulled back, knowing that I did it myself. So now I continue to integrate parts of that. And now I know what boundaries are because they were hidden deep. I know what receiving love is because that was hidden deep. I know what loving without expectation is because that was buried deep. I know what my voice is when I sing now because that too was buried deep. It was all in my shadow. And until I started going into that shadow and really uncovering what was down there, I didn't know that I had those things in my makeup. So now I do, and now I use them as a resource and as a tool, but never in a way that suppresses who I really am, which is somebody that had to go through a lot to get where I am. And I'm proud of myself, and I love myself, and I'm also proud and I love others that are trying to do the same thing and don't even know it. You know, I tell people all the time how proud of them I am, and they just look at me and they don't get it. What they don't realize is I'm proud of them because, you know, they just came up with an answer for themselves instead of waiting for me to answer it, right? Or anybody else to answer it, not just me. I mean, whoever. So that is what got me here. There's probably a million things more. Every person that I ever met got me here. Every time I took a pill that was going to sedate my truth, that got me here. And as much as I hated it, I'm thankful for the lithium, and I'm thankful for the Wellbutrin, and I'm thankful for the horrible medications that literally took me months and months and months to get out of my system so I could stop shaking and living as a shell of myself, you know. And so, to sort of take it up a notch now, Jamie and I get to perform on stage. We get to play music, whether I got a guitar in my hand or a microphone, whether I'm running around acting like a maniac so Jamie can relive his youth, or I'm on stage with my acoustic guitar and my buddy just trying to convey growth and love and acceptance of that craziness, right? So no matter what it is, something as simple as pumping gas at a gas station and somebody notices me and comes over and starts talking. Every little thing is like, oh, look at this, like another opportunity to grow or smile or to cry, you know?
Right.
Yeah. And I think some people will probably listen to this and think, my God, like, whatever, man, just like you're in a dream world. Or no, that's not it. That's not it. The amount of gratitude that you find when you've healed from something as gross as what I've healed from, the pendulum swings equally as far in the positive direction as it once was in the negative.
Absolutely.
So I'm living in that sort of in between the middle and the farness of the good, and just sort of trying to keep it there. So these days I don't get too excited about like what some people would call victories or good stuff. I say, that's great. And somebody will come up to me and say, man, I absolutely love blah, blah, blah. And I let them say it all because it's not for me, it's for them. And then I just tip my hat and I say, thank you. I'll see you next time. I appreciate it. I'm going to go hide now and read or meditate and try to not get absorbed in this ego of myself that wants to do nothing but hear about how great I am.
Yeah.
It's a weird dance, but man, it's the greatest thing I could ever imagine.
Yeah, and Jeremy, you're remembering who you are.
Yeah,
It's
I
so
am.
cool.
Yeah, and what's really cool about this is when you walk into a place and you realize that people are staring at you and they don't know you, and they also don't know why they're staring at you.
because I feel
But
you
now
back.
because now I know. They're seeing a piece of themselves that they're unfamiliar with, that they haven't yet remembered. But now they're saying, man, I think I know that guy. There's something about you that's familiar. Yeah. What's familiar is that part of me that you have inside of you that you want to get back to so badly. So get after it and stop staring at me, because now it's getting weird. And the lady that I'm with is getting uncomfortable. So stop, go back to what you're doing. And leave me alone, because now I need to go back into my house and recharge my batteries because I'm exhausted from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it's all about us. So whatever, if I look at that situation and I start talking about what others are doing, what I'm really saying is like, okay, there's a part of me that has to learn how to be comfortable with doing those things. So yeah.
So let me ask you this: what? Not that we give advice, but say someone is kind of going through the same thing where they're questioning and they're breaking free from this programming and they're ready to really just step in. Like they're ready, but there's a little bit of fear. They're ready to step into their divine masculinity. What's your advice? What would you say to that person that's watching this and is like, man, I really can relate to this guy, what he's saying and how he stepped into his true authenticity? How do I do that?
Well, I would say that one of the most important parts, but probably the hardest part as a human today, is that accepting what the voice in your head tells you without arguing back. Like we are so often given the answer immediately, but we don't trust it because we don't trust ourselves, because in the past we didn't listen to said voice or internal compass, and so we got messed up. So we learned to not trust ourselves.
Right.
So it's like when my mother would hug me, I knew that there was violence hidden inside that hug. So it didn't mean what it could have meant. So I think that now you have to understand that as an adult, you've gotten to yourself via lying. You've gotten yourself to a safe place by swinging and lashing out. So can you please, for a moment, sit, ask yourself a question, any question, and when the first answer comes in, accept it and tell the voice in your head, nice story, but I've got this. I'm good. I don't need your advice any longer. That's the mitote. That's the millions of voices in our head. That's the consciousness around us seeping into our own, because our consciousness doesn't reside in here. It's all over.
Right.
That's the Whiteco. That's the part of us that's been written about that is like buried deep down inside, and now it's lashing out from everybody. So all we hear is a bunch of wounded children lashing out, but it's not ours. So I would say that that's probably the most important or pivotal part, because if you do anything else and you're still not listening to yourself, you will never trust anybody else, because damn it, you never taught yourself how to trust yourself by listening to that internal compass or that guidance system. We are so much more powerful than what our teachers tell us, because our teachers haven't found their power. Our priests and our pastors and our fathers, they haven't found their power. They think they have, so they're telling a bunch of people how to find it. But they're teaching out of a manuscript or out of a lesson plan that it's wrong. So when you preach wrong and everybody else accepts wrong, but they believe it's truth, it doesn't take long for that to become the truth. So, I just hate to say that any one thing is the most important, but really, how can anything take hold or take shape if when you see the prize, you deny it?
Right.
Like you'll never win if you don't accept it, even if it's not what you wanted. Like, oh, I really want to go out today and be surrounded by energy from other people because I'm feeling lonely and invalidated and haven't built the toolkit to do it for myself. And that voice says, don't do it. You need to sit inside and write and read today. Just take care of yourself. But you don't do it. And you go out and you get into a car accident. Are you listening yet? Are you paying attention yet? Or somebody says, hey, come out tonight and do karaoke with me. And you say, oh my God, I'm scared to death of that. But you go do it and you meet the woman or the man of your dreams and you fall in love and you live happily ever after. Or you live in chaos because they challenge you so greatly and that's what you needed. You just have to shut the hell up and listen.
Yeah.
People in church are praying, but they never stop and listen after the prayer. They move right on to the gospel.
Yeah.
And people are meditating, but they're so busy running through their grocery lists and their errands that they didn't listen. And then when they do listen for 2 seconds, the answer comes in and it terrifies them, so they go back to story time. None of this is easy until it is. And then once it is, what's hard is making things hard. Like, I'm sorry, but if it's difficult, and I don't care what anybody says, if it's difficult and too complex, you need to step back because it's not currently yours.
Right.
It may be one day, but right now it's not. Get back to work. It's like, golly, I don't know. I'm not even sure what to liken it to. I generally like to make metaphors and analogies and whatnot, but some people will tell you, gosh, I wish I would have had more of this from their deathbed. Has anybody in all of history in front of their family on their deathbed said, man, I wish I would have just worked more. I really wish I would have been away from y'all more. Why are we doing this stuff? What are we doing? Stop. Like, I'm not a slave. I'm not a machine. I am an autonomous part of God in God's creation that has allowed deception and division to shape my outlook of not only myself, but everyone else. So if you don't listen to anything other than the television set, the radio, your friends, the person gossiping in line behind you, the angry political pundit, the person trying to sell you something for something that you have, but you don't need, that's how you get to where we are. That's how you get to where we are. We are in a place right now because we have listened to nobody else, or we've listened to everybody else but not ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at them because they're me.
Absolutely.
They provided me with an opportunity to trigger an old wound so I could heal it. They are oppressing me because I've oppressed myself. They have enslaved me because I have enslaved myself. And every bit of it is them going, like, in front of us, they're like, bad, 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 evil, 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 school shooting, war,
Yeah.
Rape, murder. And then as soon as you turn away from that, they go, hey, do you think they're getting it yet? Do you think they're listening to us yet? Like, we just made a movie and released it, and they hate us, and they think that we're evil. We just gave them everything they need to know in this movie, and they've ignored it. Like, if all you're going to listen to is pop culture, we're going to tell you via pop culture, and you're still going to ignore it. I'm not God. I'm not the creator. But I tell you what, man, sometimes I feel a speck of that indignation and that disrespect of self that God must feel from his own creation. It's got to be gut-wrenching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So
big time. But I think at the same time, I mean, most people that I talk to that are on this, that have this level of consciousness, we're feeling this shift, right? We're feeling that people are really, so the tides are changing, and it's a beautiful thing.
Well, the tide is, it's weird about that tide, right? The proverbial tide, right?
Yeah.
So it's a cycle, right? Everything in nature is a cycle. So why wouldn't we be? Why wouldn't our trials and everything else be a cycle? So again, like, to get too excited about it would probably shift that pendulum a little too hard for my liking.
Mhm.
So nowadays I look at it and I say, yeah, it is shifting, but what does this shift mean? And what's this about? That's my favorite
Right.
question now, is like, what is this all
Yeah.
about? And so what I'm coming to realize is that what we're seeing is evolution. We're seeing a form of evolution and the forces that oppose evolution. Evolution cannot be stopped. That's why it's evolution. It evolves continuously.
Right.
You throw something bad at it, it forces it to react, respond, and change in its own benefit so it can grow. So the evolution or the change, the sea change that we're seeing is the wings being formed on the bird. And they're just about to the part where the bird can take flight. However, there are a lot of other birds that haven't taken flight yet that are yelling, "Don't do it, you're going to fall to your death." And that bird doesn't know any better, but has a feeling that that's not entirely the truth. But until that bird jumps or gets pushed out of the nest, will it realize that its wings aren't perfect, but it's gotten to a place where it can take off and fly. So we are preparing for flight, and there are a lot of scared people that are afraid that we don't know how to fly. And some people will panic and will crash and burn and not fly, metaphorically. And some people will take flight and lead by example so that others may do the same. There will be casualties, so to speak. And there will be people that stand out, and there will always be somebody trying to tell you that what they're going to sell you is going to make you fly faster and farther.
Yep.
But until you start listening to yourself and trusting yourself, you'll never do it. But once you do start listening and trusting that voice and that inner guidance system and living via it and saying in every moment, what is my truth, instead of just blurting something out, like, it's just going to take even longer, you know? So as we evolve and as that percentage of evolution climbs, it's like a tumbleweed and it starts going faster and faster. So I think we're seeing the evolutionary process starting to take shape and become a larger tumbleweed, if you will. And you're seeing the system crumble because we're evolving and it's going to crumble. And as it evolves, the veil will drop more and more. More people will realize truths. More people will break down and be told they need medications and told that they're bipolar or schizophrenic. More people will be told that it's evil and it's an undoing of God's will or whatever. They will get louder as we get quieter and creep away because they want what we have and they don't understand how to do it yet.
Yeah.
So we have to lead by example in this evolutionary process. But evolution isn't easy, you know, just like a snake molting its skin, or like the bark on a tree cracking and scarring as that tree expands. We are the same thing. We are not our car or the money or any of the success externally. We are the expansion waiting to expand.
Yep.
Yeah. We aren't what the tree becomes. We are what the tree came from, you know?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not sitting there trying to just like spit out like words that maybe somebody will think are theirs or identify with. But I think that we have to take this back down to a kindergarten level so that anybody can understand it.
Absolutely.
And here's the other part about that listening thing. If you're listening to a friend or family member or even an acquaintance at the gas pump, you're listening to them, you're doing them the service of allowing them to hear themselves speak. If you give them advice, this is the hard part. If you give them any advice, you fail them. Other than you have everything internally and the kingdom of heaven resides within. If you tell them anything other than you're doing a good job and you just need to stay on track, You are robbing them, and you will pay for it yourself via their karmic debt. You will take that on because you prevented them from moving forward. And now that will stumble you, and you'll think, my God, I was on path. What happened? Well, you let your ego take over, and you told somebody how to do something instead of using the method that, the figure or the story of Christ did himself, and use the Socratic method based on, Socrates and Plato. You question. You don't answer. And that's not because you don't love and want them to grow. It's because you love them more than they love themselves. And they're going to grow if they do that. Right? It has nothing to do with what you know. It has everything to do with, are you present and allow them to hear themselves? And that's your job, is to reflect back. And as you reflect back to them, they will get pieces of you without you saying anything, just because you didn't talk over them. Just because there's something about you that's different. Just because, damn, every time I'm around you, I feel better. Just like, why is it every time you come into the room, half the room leaves, but everybody that's left is just surrounding you to listen?
Right? Yeah.
I don't understand any of it other than I've seen it firsthand, and it's miraculous.
It truly is.
And if I could explain it, it wouldn't be miraculous.
Right, exactly. Some things you just can't explain. You just can't.
No. And why would you want to? Because there's so much wonderment and this childlike curiosity buried in there. Don't take that from somebody. Let them find that.
Let people figure it out on their own, right?
Yeah.
It's taken me a minute to really figure out what is it that I want to do, right? I'm evolving, so it's kind of like, okay, these are the kind of people that I want to surround myself with. I think these are the people that I can guide. That's all I am, is a guide. I can't tell people how to do things. I can just say, hey, this is what worked for me, and I encourage you to try it. If not, I can't give you the answers. I can show you where you can find them.
Yeah. It's really interesting. There's something sort of baked into what you were just talking about that I'd love to point out for other people. I remember the day that I made this realization. I was saying that I wanted a certain kind of partner, a romantic partner, after my marriage and after I'd sort of repaired the floorboards in my house so other people could come in, so to speak. I realized that every time I said, this is what I want, what I was saying was, I don't have that. And it's hard for us to catch because we do want things.
Yeah.
But until we've embraced everything that we think we're not, or that we don't like about ourselves, or that we're trying to get rid of, the more it's going to come in. So I'm not the first to say any of this. I've heard a lot of very, very gifted and intelligent people say this recently. We are, God, how do I say this? Forgive me. There's a lot going on in my head right now. We are not here to make or do for anyone else, even our beautiful children that we bring into the world. We are not here to do any of the things that we think we're supposed to be here doing. Some people will say, oh, well, I'm very successful, and they always mean financially.
Yeah.
And I just love everybody because they're financially successful. And really, my days are just great because they have money. We are not here for any of that. We've all been made to think we are. We are not here to pump our children into an education system that basically takes beautiful fruit and turns it into a mushy, cold, lifeless smoothie that's always the same. But we've done these things, and we keep doing these things. But we are not here to tell anybody else that they can't do those things that they're doing. Because if it wasn't for those things, people like you and I and anybody else wouldn't get to where we are.
Right.
So what a weird dichotomy. Because it's like we're not here to do them, but they are here, and so we are here to transmute them. So you can't want to willingly transmute something or understand how if it was never needing to be transmuted. So anyhow, I guess that's a long way, and I probably got a little off course. My apologies.
No,
but
not at all.
I really do feel that we're all barking up the wrong tree. And we don't realize that we're barking up the wrong tree, but we can't tell the person that's barking up the tree that they're doing it. We have to walk away, so eventually they look around and they go, wait, there's nobody else here barking up this tree with me. Why not? Where'd you guys go? And only then can you lean in and say, I'm so glad you finally asked. Come with me.
Yeah.
And then even then, though, again, I go back to that thing where that Socratic method that was taught to me is like, I'm so excited you're here. And the whole time they think, and I can only say this because I did this, they're thinking with bated breath, they're going to give me all the answers. And the first thing you do is sit down and say, so, what kind of questions do you have? And like, wait, I thought you were just going to give me answers. No. I want you to ask me questions.
Right.
And oh, by the way, I'm really going to piss you off when I don't give you the answers.
Right.
But man, you're going to start questioning. And that's really, really beautiful. Like I remember the men and women that did it to me. And I don't even know if they knew that they were doing it sometimes. That's a really cool part about this. Sometimes you channel things and you don't even realize that it's going on.
Right.
But anyway, I do think that we are on the cusp of something really beautiful, but that cusp might take 1,000 years. I don't know. Like, I'm really excited because I'm seeing things move at a rate that feel very exponential and like faster than light speed. But at the same time, I guess I have the presence to know that just because I want to see the culmination and just because I want to see the ending of the film doesn't mean that I'm going to see it from this perspective, you know?
Right.
Yeah. But I have faith that it's coming. I have faith that people will understand that they are of the same thing and nobody is without the potential for transformation. Like it's that whole thing, like if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Oh my gosh, I say that all the time, right?
Right, yeah.
It's just these little things, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just what works for you, right? And it's on your timeline, and it's what you can, like you were talking about recalling memories. Like you're not ready, and that's fine. And you know this, right? So when you're on this journey, you get to a point where you're like, I'm not ready yet, and I'm okay with that. And being okay with that instead of like trying to be like, no, I want to know and fight it. And when you just get into the flow and you just start to go with what the spirit wants you to do, right? Like it's a good thing. But again, you had also mentioned the whole thing about when we do tell people what to do. It does come back to us, right? Because we're stepping out of pocket at the end of the day, trying to tell people how to go about it.
You're at the table playing trivia with your friends, but you're just an onlooker and you're giving them answers.
Yeah.
And then there's like they're at the finish line and you got to go to the bathroom, and now they got to come up with an answer by themselves, and it's pivotal. Yeah. And they can't. Right. And they can't. Because you took that away from them, because now they're relying on you.
Right.
And it sounds silly to make light of this and compare it to a game of trivia. But if you're the one that's constantly standing up saying, I got this, then God is going to put everything on your shoulders until you realize you don't got it. Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
I did that a lot. I did that, I did that for the majority of my life, after I lost my mother and trying to step into her role. And it wasn't my role. It wasn't my job to tell my brothers what to do. It wasn't my job to tell my fathers what to do. It was their journey. It was a circumstance. We had a loss. And my brothers lost a mother. I lost a mother. And I was more focused on them than worrying about myself and really grieving that loss, right? And so this opportunity with my father passing has really allowed me to feel all of that. And it's hard work. It's hard work, and not everybody's ready for it. And that's another thing that we have to understand and have compassion for, is that not everybody is ready for it.
Well, like whenever I'm talking to friends that have witnessed my, some people call it transformation. I just call it like whatever, just an unveiling of sorts of myself. When I've talked to many of these people, and like they're talking about how like, man, it's so like you've done this and that, and I catch myself thinking like, God, I actually sort of hope you never have to go through that. So like on one hand, I want them to get to this place where I feel like I'm residing on most days, but on another hand, there's a part of me that understands how blissful ignorance can be.
Oh, yeah.
And because I love them so much, I almost feel like, hey, you know what? Let me take this. You go back to work. And when you're done with work, why don't you stop off at the bar and have a beer or two? And then when you get home, I want you to have an argument with your wife and go to bed angry, because that's what you know how to do and it's comfortable. And I love you so much that just go do your thing, man. I got this. I got you. I'm going to keep fighting this fight for all of us so that you can go back and enjoy your family. Because I know how much it hurt when mine was taken from me, because all I wanted to do was get better. So there's a part of us that, it's funny because that compassion is what will get you to a change, but it's also what will get you to understand that change is so difficult that not everybody is going to even attempt it. And you have to be able to say, you know what? I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. It's just like that character at the end of the first Matrix that says, or maybe it's not the first, that says, hey, I want to go to a good concert and get a steak. Put me back in.
Right.
I get it, because when you start seeing that the world is truly run by what we would call monsters, you understand that you are the monster. And you know how hard it was to realize and accept and process that you were the monster the entire time. It's as if God shows up one day on the scene, and let's say he looks like this stupid version of Jesus that everybody talks about. And Jesus is standing there, and all of a sudden, this stupid version of the devil shows up next to him. And you're thinking, oh my God, there's God and there's the devil. What's going to happen? And they both look at you and they become one, and they say, ah, gotcha. I was both the whole time.
Right.
Because we are.
We have the dark, we have the light, because we had that separation.
But what's great is if you are a room that is full of darkness, that would be to say that you've lived a life of missing the mark, so to speak. I would say sin, but all sin really means is missing the mark. If you've lived a life of darkness, and then let's say somebody comes in and your room's dark, man, it's pitch black. It's great for things like journeys on, plant medicine, or it's good for deprivation of, sensory deprivation. But what happens when your friend comes in and strikes one match on the side of a matchbox and it lights up the whole room? Ooh. Okay. So now you're telling me that even in the darkest of moments, all it takes is a spark of light to completely change. Cool. Well, I'm just going to keep on lighting those matches, man. I'm just going to keep on lighting those matches.
Yeah.
And if you want to blow it out, blow it out. But guess what, man? I'm going to light another match. And that's it.
Yeah.
And no matter like what happens, I get into a car wreck, I lose a limb, I lose a loved one. Where's that matchbox? Let's go.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Let's shine the light on it. Oh, it is. It's such a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
And well, I'm so, you know what? I'm so like excited for you that you're stepping in, you're remembering who you are. It's such a beautiful, beautiful story that you shared. Your story
Thank
and
you.
your truth, and I appreciate you coming on. I really do, and I appreciate
of course.
being vulnerable. I think that is being vulnerable is such an amazing thing, right? Because it allows other people to understand that you can do that.
Well, vulnerability it's just honesty. I mean, that's all. Vulnerability is nothing more than honesty without fear of retribution, right?
Absolutely.
So if you're fearful of something, you don't have faith that it all has purpose.
Right.
So like, if you're scared of getting pulled over and getting a ticket, you're out of the mind space that says, hey, I might meet my future partner.
Right.
I mean, this police officer walking up to give me a ticket might be what changes my world. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, don't be scared of anything.
You never know.
It's the same. It's really, it's that thing where like, let's say you're sitting in a church service and the preacher man is trying to scare the hell out of you, but then tells you to have faith about something. You're like, wait,
it's right.
If I have faith, I can't be scared. I can't be scared. I can't be afraid of anything if I have faith.
Right.
Nothing. I can only know that no matter what happens, I'm going to come out better.
Right. And so you can see the hypocrisy of all of that, right? It's
yeah.
How am I supposed to be fearful but yet faithful at the same time? It does not make any sense to me. It never did make sense to me. And
that's the trick.
Oh, you're going to go to hell. You're going to go to hell because you're doing X, Y, Z. You're going to hell. Who said?
Nobody. They do.
Who said?
Yeah.
Because when I said this, and it's like, then I say, okay, well, wait a minute. Okay, I ask these questions. Are you sitting in the stillness?
Right.
Most people do not. Most people can't do it. They can't sit in the stillness.
Yeah, and most people aren't going to accept the fact that, Constantine was so full of shame that when he played his hand in having the Bible written in the way, the Christian Bible written in the way that it was self-serving to get himself off of the hook for doing such disgusting things to his own loved ones. People aren't going to accept that. So it's really, again, like I know that, like, I don't want to get back into another rabbit hole, but if more people would understand that they've been sold a bill of bum goods and bought it hook, line, and sinker, they would get angry enough to start digging into their own truth.
Right.
But I walk into a church and I tell somebody like, hey, this is all hogwash. I'm a heretic. Well, that's how they designed it. Those people are flying monkeys for the narcissist that is the church. They're sending the same message out that the church wants it to. They believe the lie, therefore they can't accept that you don't believe it. So this is part of that trap or that trick that many of us live in, just like you have to go to a public school in order to live a happy life, right?
Right.
Like, well, you want to go to college, don't you? Well, you want to go work in a suit and tie, don't you?
Right.
All those things. So anyway, I say those things in closing just to remind people that even in your most comfortable place, you should realize that maybe you shouldn't be so comfortable there.
Shouldn't be so comfortable, and you should ask questions. Always question everything, because even in the scripture, it talks about that this system, the earth that we live in, there is psychological warfare.
Principalities.
Principalities of a spiritual nature, and that to be mindful of that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if we're not
Mhm.
practicing mindfulness on a daily, how can we have that awareness? If we're
Well,
not,
that goes
right?
That's pretty pivotal, right? Like we could have said that and
Yeah.
closed at the beginning that people want to preach mindfulness, but the only reason you start with mindfulness is so that you can hear your true voice inside,
Right,
so you can
right.
quiet.
Right.
If you practice mindfulness but never get to the point where you can understand what you are trying to be mindful of, too many people want to be mindful of everything outside of them.
No.
Oh, don't hurt my feelings. You're not being very mindful. Oh, horseshit. Like what I'm being mindful of is that you still are looking through a facade or a veil and telling everybody that that's the truth, and it's not. Like I'm going to be mindful of myself so that I can walk away from your mistruth with my truth and not feel like I'm crazy.
Right.
Not get gaslit or breadcrumbed into believing that I'm still less than. Like I don't believe that we're waiting on anything. I do believe that our source is waiting for us, like I said earlier. So
Big time. I
you know,
agree with you. I agree with you
Yeah.
on that. And
so anyway,
it's where we have to do the work, right? We have to, because our consciousness has been fragmented into these pieces.
well, we have such an idea of what we want, and we're holding
Yes.
on to it with an iron grip, that when what we need and what would eventually give us more than what we want, we turn it away. So like I was in these relationships with people that were very much like I'll just say it was showing me a very controlling person that was projecting a lot. And like I was seeing this pattern, and it would have been very easy for me to say, man, I keep dating the same person, this version of my mother or whatever. And, I'm done. But every time I did that, somebody else was ushered in. And so what I realized was the energy that I was working with was the issue. The way that I kept giving that energy what it needed to keep going was the problem, not the person. So every single
Right.
person that came into my life that would eventually leave because I thought they were toxic or they were just doing gross things was actually a chance for me to not control it, to accept it and allow them to heal via whatever they needed to heal from.
Right.
But because I wanted to control it and they weren't on my timeline or my schedule, I then discarded them and said, okay, bring me the next one. The next one's got to be better. It's never going to be better or right until you realize that there is no better or right outside of your perception.
Right.
Change your perception and they change.
Yep.
That's all there is to it. They change.
Big time. And you start
So-
to attract when you change your mindset and the way that you view yourself, right? And this happens obviously with this work, right?
Yeah.
Once we do that, then we start to attract what we are. Right?
That's where I said earlier that other frequency disappears and you don't see it any longer.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
this goes on, like, this is really cool. And I don't, like, again, we could go on forever, but
Yeah.
speaking of that, right, I just want to make a quick point.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
so fascinating to me. When you're operating in a zone where you're not seeing or experiencing all this stuff from the lower zone, let's say,
Yeah.
it doesn't exist. You've transmuted yourself or elevated yourself into a place where those other things can't exist where you're at, so they go away. So you're creating heaven on earth at that point, right?
Right.
So if that's truly the case, then, like, when you start to have friends or loved ones removed from your life, that's not loss, that's gain. And if you are going to hang on to them, you're going to keep yourself at whatever level they're operating at, and you cannot elevate to another level or density or dimension or frequency or whatever you want to call it. You're going to continue operating in that same mode because you are the I am, and whatever the I am is what it is. So if you want to be lower vibrational, living in lower Egypt, that whole thing,
Yep.
then you are. Have fun. Go do it. But what you are not is operating as the Lamb of God or to the right hand of the throne. You are not operating as the energy centers would have you operating, as in from one to the next to the next. You're just stuck somewhere. So anyway, yeah.
No,
Again,
it
just
is. It's such a fascinating thing, and this is why I always say to people, be open, and question everything.
yeah. What is this about? What is this about?
What is
And
this
if
about?
and something that I want to share before we get off of here is like, there's going to be moments in everybody's day where they are just lost in thought. And something that I did that really helped me, that might, like a form of this, I think would help anybody. In the middle of that, you've got to catch yourself and say, oh, hold on a second. That's a nice story. It's just a story, though.
Yeah.
It's not real. That's just in my head. That's a story. That's not what that person really thinks. That's not what this person feels. That's not what this means. It's just a story. And just like in the movie theater, when you get what you need out of the story, when it's over, you go, you integrate it, and then you go see another story. But they are not here to stay. So whatever story you've made up about yourself or those around you, call yourself on it. Nice story. Move along. The next story will be better. It'll be easier, it'll be faster, whatever. But you've got to acknowledge the fact that you're doing it all to yourself and get tired of it.
Absolutely. It is.
Yeah.
It's something. Well, I definitely am going to have you on again, because we could,
Cool.
we could talk for hours about all of these things. It's
Yeah. I would love to come back on at any time. Yeah, absolutely.
And I appreciate you sharing your story. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if you'd like, we can always get back on sometime and dive into one granular part of any of it.
Yes, I think
I know
so.
today was very, very, it was like an inch thick and like a mile wide. So
Yeah.
if you want to go a mile wide or a mile deep sometime, just let me know.
Oh, definitely. Because I some of the things that you were saying, I'm like, ooh, okay, I don't know that. I want to learn that. So I appreciate it. And I think I think it's a cool thing, because when we're all kind of going through this similar, we all have our own perspective and we're going through it. We understand that, we have to let other people have their experience. But at the same time, it's a cool thing to be able to reach out to people that are going through it, right? And like, when you kind of do get stuck, and so yeah, I think we can learn a lot from each other, and I think that's an important thing. So hence the reason for this podcast. And I've had an opportunity to interview singer-songwriters and talking about putting music out there that is that really just is conveying their message, right? It's a medium for them to express themselves. So it's been cool.
and yeah, very much so, very much so. It's all messages, it's all meanings, it's all purposeful. And somebody might say, oh, well, if you create this heavy, loud, angry music, that's negative. No, it's not. Because there's somebody in that moment that needs it, so they can use that message or that feeling to propel to the next thing. Right. We can't be so pompous and arrogant to think that that's bad, this is good. For who? Is the gazelle, is the lion bad for needing to eat the gazelle? No, it's not bad. That's your perspective. Right. Does a gazelle think it's bad? Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Of course it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. So share with the listeners where they can find you on your social media.
Okay. I don't really do I don't do a lot of social media these days. I was doing TikTok pretty regularly, but then I got to this point, much like we talked about earlier, where I realized that I was starting to create content because I felt like I should. And instead, I just wait for that pull, that forehead drag, and then I go, okay, I've got something that's obviously needs to be said now. But I am on TikTok. I go by, I think it's just Jeremy Allen, maybe, or Jeremy Allen. Music can be found online. The band is called Don't Get Dead, which is hilarious because we are all racing to different deaths of our own all the time. Yeah. So that's out there. My own private stuff will be available soon. But really, that's not even. I mean, it's not even important. I think that like where you can find me is within. Just go inside and find me inside. That's where I'm at. I'm inside you, just like you're inside me.
Oh, I
Go
love
inside.
that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Go within.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's the best advice today. Go within. We all have
Yeah.
it within us, right? That's what it's
That's
all about. Tap it into that
Yeah.
greatness, because
Yeah, yeah,
you know we've been in a situation where we have this perception of being separated from God, and we're really not. We are the
we're not. We're not. We are. Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. We really are. It's beautiful. Thank you.
It was so good having you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Take
Looking
care.
forward to the next one. You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, peace. Bye.
Unveiling the layers of lies, breaking free.